Assalamu alaikum and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honorable speakers, distinguished guests, and worthy participants. We are gathered here today to have an interactive discussion and deliberation on this very pertinent subject of role of leadership in the freedom struggle of Kashmir. It is worthy of acknowledgement that the nation of Kashmir is full of heroes, their leaders, freedom struggle, their women raising their voices and sacrificing their sons, husbands, brothers are all heroes. The 75 years of freedom struggle is full of valiant and towering personalities like Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, along with resistance leaders like Yasin Malik, and many known and still unknown leading figures who have created history by giving their full to the cause of self-determination. The list of freedom strugglers is a never-ending one which has kept the pulse of the movement going on despite the systemic polarization of politics, which has made the region deeply divisive. So without much delay, I welcome and introduce my first speaker, Dr. Ghulam Muhammad Safi. Dr. Safi is the convener of AJK chapter of Tehreek, Hurriyet, Jammu and Kashmir. Dr. Safi will be talking on Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani's leadership, his vision, and how the present leadership of Kashmir has carried his legacy. So over to you.
Dr. Arshi, Saleem, Ms. Maryam, Mastoor, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this roundtable discussion. I have had a unique honor of working with Sayyid Ali Gilani in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir for more than 2 decades. I found Sayyid Ali Gilani, the politician, the parliamentarian, the Islamic scholar, the orator, an embodiment of character, courage, conviction, and commitment to the cause of Islam, Pakistan, and Kashmir. In his presence, I was asked to cross over to Azad Kashmir to apprise Pakistani and the world leaders of the situation prevailing in Jammu and Kashmir. Sayyid Ali Gilani's legacy as a politician, Islamic scholar, and fearless advocate of the Kashmiri people, particularly their right to self-determination, remains unparalleled. His unwavering commitment to the freedom of his people from India endeared him to the masses in Jammu and Kashmir. He was the most popular leader of Kashmiris. He will continue to inspire all those carrying his mission forward to bring an end to the illegal occupation of Jammu and Kashmir. In the past, the people of Jammu and Kashmir wholeheartedly supported the Kashmiri leader, Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah, who spearheaded the plebiscite movement for 22 long years. He faced hardships, incarcerations, but fell prey to Indian machinations and compromised his stance to become a puppet chief minister of the occupied territory. Though Sayyid Ali Gilani left for his heavenly abode at the age of 92, without achieving for his people what he strived for his entire life. Yet there is not a single person who compares him to Sheikh Abdullah. mainly because Sayyid Gilani never changed his stance and remained steadfast and firm. He preferred detention and death, but did not surrender to the will of the occupying power, India. He, even as a strong proponent of Pakistan, he coined the slogan, "Hum Pakistani hai, Pakistan hamara hai." So he had the courage to differ with President Pervez Musharraf, who wanted to deviate from the UN Security Council resolutions to pave way for his 4-point formula. Sayyid Ali Gilani's legacy remains a beacon of hope for those who yearn for a just, durable, and peaceful resolution of the Kashmir issue in accordance with the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. Liberation movements and freedom struggles need vision, direction, strategy, and execution for short-term, medium-term, and long-term targets and objectives on the ground and internationally. Leadership needs to devise strategies to counter Indian hegemony, settler colonialism, and repression. Mobilization becomes a necessity when people are in difficulty and distress. When leaders and mobilizers are behind the bars, we need to mobilize the masses, workers, and our allies equally. Leadership requires leaving a legacy, just as Shahid Gilani, Shahid Sahrai, Shahid Burhan Wani, and many others left. They left behind them the lessons of purpose, values, ethics, passion, competence, communication, narrative building ability. It's also the responsibility of those in leadership to identify, cultivate, and groom the next generation. Masarat Alam is a great example post Gilani's Shahadat. To conclude, I would like to quote Mr. Kofi Annan, former UN Secretary General, who was once asked in Iraq by a journalist, an Arab journalist, "You talk about giving diplomacy a chance, but why don't you give diplomacy a chance in Iraq? Where are there these no-fly zones and all that?" So to his question, Kofi Annan said, "You can do a lot with diplomacy, but you can do a lot more with diplomacy backed up by force." So Sayyid Ali Gilani also believed in it, that we can do a lot with diplomacy, but we can do a lot more with diplomacy backed up by force. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And you rightly said that Sayyid Ali Gilani Shah Sahab was an embodiment of Islam, Pakistan, and Kashmir, and his legacy remains unparalleled, and his commitment remains as a beacon of hope. I now invite my second speaker, Professor Arshi Saleem Hashmi. Dr. Arshi Saleem Hashmi teaches at the National Defense University. Dr. Hashmi specializes in religion and politics of violent conflicts with special reference to South Asia. And Dr. Arshi will be giving insights on the rise of freedom struggle among the youth in Kashmir and how the leadership gaps being created in the post-2019 has been filled by other actors. Thank you.
Thank you, Maryam. It's always good to be here. And because of the fact that I am a professor, so I'm obviously going to look at it, even if I don't want to, but I would look at it academically, what exactly is happening there. And what I have tried to actually see, and I understand that I have only 10 minutes, so I'm just going to mention things and we can have question answers as well. Since the topic is role of leadership, how important leaders are, I mean, primarily a leader is, any leader for that matter, is critical to any movement and, for commitment, providing an inspiration and taking the movement from one, phase to another and to its ultimate culmination. What we find now in Kashmir, especially, I mean, without going into the history, obviously, you have got a guest who can talk about it, and you can later ask him as well. But what is happening, especially post 2019, I think it's an era of confusion also. I mean, we have to be very honest with us as well. I mean, we cannot just say that using some flashy statements and all, and just say that, okay, so people are doing something there and something will come out of it. What exactly is happening on the ground? What the youth, the young people, the young Kashmiris are actually thinking, what is the future that they have? And especially in an era when they are sort of disillusioned with the leadership as well. I mean, let's be frank with the fact that people who have claimed to be the leaders on both sides of the border, at the end of the day, it was more of a power politics, who's getting what, that they got into. So more into a traditional political process, as if it's not really an issue of existence, an issue that is actually an unfinished agenda of the partition plan. So when we talk about the role of leadership and how the youth look at it, I mean, I think it's important that we look at it in two ways. One is the traditional political leadership that existed since even before 47, but continued. And the other one, which usually people tend not to really talk about it, but they do understand that it does exist in one way or other, is Pan-Islamism inspired leaders. So there is this leadership emerging, even if the number is very, very low, or some not really mainstream people would be looking at it. But there is this discourse that exists that Kashmir is not just a political issue, but it has this grand, importance when it comes to Muslim feeling or facing oppression all over the world. So it should be connected with that. So there are people who try to transform it from a political, very specific issue between India and Pakistan and the Kashmiri people to a grand Islamic, agenda. And then, of course, there are consequences as well. When it comes to the traditional leadership, we all know, and it has been mentioned as well, we have those who continued with the status quo. And I think that it actually benefited them also, focusing on having Kashmir as a somewhat autonomous, region, but then continuing within the Indian constitutional framework. So we have the National Muslim, Indian Muslim National Conference, and Mehbooba Mufti and Mufti Mehboob's Kashmir Democratic Party, People's Democratic Party, and then the very interesting, the young Kashmiri, who I think is still now member of parliament in Indian occupied Kashmir, Shah Faisal, coming up with his Kashmir political movement, giving an idea that, okay, within that setup, we continue with that. So there is this traditional political leadership that existed, and they continued with the fact that as long as India is not really, giving us the opportunity that we have the Kashmir, and, we continue with that. And, but then there are other also within the traditional political setup, and those, they were the ones who actually talked about the real self-determination. And of course, Sayyid Ali Shah Ghulam was one of them who continued to talk about that this is not something, we are not going to be just, continue with the fact that you have elections and Indian government arranges the elections and then we are done. There is this unfinished agenda, and the people should get the right to self-determination. And then, of course, along with them, along with him, there are other also, so all-party Hurriyet conference, which has many other prominent leaders who continue to stress upon the UN resolution, and this will continue. And they faced that. So there was the parallel sort of leadership that we found in Indian occupied Kashmir. Those who were claiming to be nationalists, saying that we don't believe in politics in the name of religion, and we are not really, we continue with that. And then there were people who said that in 47, it was decided that the Muslim majority state should have a right to decide. When it comes to the pan-Islamic groups, I mean, why I'm talking about this, it may not be important, it may not have that kind of, I mean, some people would argue that it may not have that kind of political role or influence. The fact of the matter is that that particular thing was exploited and used by India, and it benefited it, aligning it with the greater agenda of global war on terror. This is how India managed to got the attention of the international community that something really bad is happening in Kashmir. This whole narrative, this whole idea that there is this human rights violation in Kashmir, India is not giving right to self-determination, it went somewhere. And the entire international community started focusing on the fact, because this whole security narrative had changed post 9/11, so they also thought that, okay, so when the Indian government is saying that something is happening, there are terrorist groups, there are extremists, there are Islamists, I mean, whatever the tag you would like to give it, something is happening and we need to help India. And we need to really, and that's how they managed to avoid any criticism on the Indian counterterrorism efforts that India did in the name of counterterrorism, actually suppressing the genuine political, process in Kashmir. So oppressing the people of Kashmir and stopping or preventing a genuine political process, it became kind of easier, a bit more easier for India, because now the whole world was sort of concerned about terrorism, and if there were countries who were ready to align with the Western nations in the name of terrorism, they got support also. So this whole narrative that India in last 20 years or more, it was strategically designed. So it was not just focusing on keeping an eye on the groups who were in Indian occupied Kashmir, politically engaged or raising their voices or asking for self-determination or plebiscite, but it was strategically designed to bring this whole thing as, a problem of terrorism, and that the world should help. And if not help, at least just, look away, not really, ask questions about that. What if we have found that, and this has been sort of highlighted by India as well. So if there were people who were, out of frustration and, disillusionment after 2019, and we can understand that it happened, and we have ourselves faced terrorism, people who, became part of certain groups out of frustration, revenge, and other things. So here also, we find examples and instances where they got inspiration and they got inspired by those groups who had other, agendas, and those few, they were highlighted as if the entire movement is all about terrorism. It's all about the Islamic movements and pan-Islamism, and in fact, changing this whole idea of something that India had not done. What I am trying to focus here is the transformation that in a very subtle, casual way, people did not even realize that what is actually happening and why there was not really a hue and cry, or at least some movement in international community when India changed the status. I mean, internationally, there is a resolution and all, but it became sort of quite easy for them in the sense that once they decided in the parliament, they managed to do it because they knew that the international community would not really resist it. One of the things that we find that the emergence of small groups of resistance, post 2019, using Al-Qaeda or ISIS flags, it damaged the real political movement against Indian aggression. Randomly using slogans for Sharia and showing disgust towards democracy, it has not helped the people's real opposition to the Indian policy of changing the status of Kashmir. Instead of earlier Azadi or liberation or freedom slogan that has been part of the Indian struggle movement, freedom movement, the Kashmir freedom movement, instead of that, it sort of a kind of expression of revulsion and rage against anyone who opposed the ultra-conservative idea of caliphate. It became within the Kashmiris, and especially I'm talking about Indian-occupied Kashmir, it became an issue that was highlighted within. So it's an atmosphere of fear also. Generally, Kashmir people obviously believed in their own genuine political movement, and that's how they want to really achieve what their objectives were. Thus transforming the nature of the political movement from right of self-determination to larger Islamic movement. So these groups, and they were showing their allegiance to Al-Qaeda, and why I'm saying this, because it may not be a grand thing, but the presence on social media. So even if you have a group or two or three highlighting something and showing that we are Kashmiri, we want this, we are doing this, it's all about this. This is the virtual world that, people live and got inspiration, or at least those who are focusing on that. So it's actually damaging the actual cause of the freedom movement. I'm quickly coming, and I will talk in the question answer, but I'm just coming to how Indian political discourse that I talked about. I think it helped India in two ways. One is to curb the genuine political movement, raising their voice for self-determination, and two, India managed to avoid any attention that I have already mentioned. How it helped India? Unfortunately, the internal division, and that links it with the role of leadership in Kashmir. The internal power struggle within various groups claiming to be the true representatives of Kashmiri people in Indian-occupied Kashmir provided the space for India to exploit and continue its aggressive policies of curbing human rights in the absence of a strong united opposition. Of course, there have been genuine leaders, and we have talked about it, they desired, but they could not really achieve. What needs to be done now? I think emphasis on the political side of the conflict. Kashmir is a political issue. It is an issue. It is a conflict between India and Pakistan. It is an unfinished agenda of partition. It is Kashmiri people's political right to have their say in Kashmir. They have their own history, distinct identity with a strong culture, which cannot be removed or distorted by India in the name of Indian nationalism. Given the international political environment, Pakistan should avoid overemphasizing religion. It is certainly key point, bonding point from our perspective, but the world is not interested in religion-based discourse anymore. Pakistan has a valid reason to stress upon the international community to have India reevaluate its policy with Kashmir and particularly Kashmiri Muslims on the basis of a political issue that remain unresolved. The Kashmiri leaders, on the other hand, they have to reevaluate their course of action as well. It is not a matter of who's getting what. It is much more larger objective of safeguarding Kashmiri identity, culture, and human rights. So I think I will stop here because of the 10 minutes that I got, but then I'll certainly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arshi. And you rightly pointed out that the post-2019 has created an era of disillusionment where two factors are looked upon. One, the traditional leadership, which continues with their ideological stand and struggle. And the other factor is the emergence of pan-Islamic inspired ideology, which India has very skillfully exploited to its benefit. Now I invite my third speaker, Ms. Maryam Mastoor. Ms. Maryam is a research analyst at the Institute of Regional Studies, Islamabad. She looks after the Indian politics and various issues concerning India, and she has been regularly contributing her analytical opinions in various newspapers. Ms. Maryam will be talking on Martyrs of Kashmir.
Thank you, Vera. I'll deliberate upon those leaders of IIOJK who sacrificed their lives for the cause of freedom and became inspiration for the young Kashmiri. I'll be talking about Martyrs of Kashmir. I'll address three questions: who they were, why they took up arms against the Indian state, and what impacts they created in Indian-held Kashmir. First is Maqbool Bhatt. Maqbool Bhatt was the first freedom fighter to be hanged by the Indian government in 1984. He belonged to a peasant family in Jammu and Kashmir. He started his struggle for an independent Kashmir in 1966 and formulated Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front, which is now headed by Yasin Malik. Now coming to the question that why he started his political struggle against the Indian occupation. The answer to this question lies in the unjust treatment given to the Kashmiris. Charles Dickens very rightly wrote, "In the little world in which children have their existence, whosoever brings them up, there is nothing so finely perceived and so finely felt as injustice." In 1945-46, a feudal lord ordered a raid on his village. As it failed up due to a poor harvest, the villagers pleaded the Jagirdar to reconsider his decision. But when they failed, all the children of the village were asked to lie down in front of the Jagirdar's car. But even at that time, Maqbool Bhatt as a child compelled the Jagirdar to overturn his decision. He was very much against the injustice right from the beginning. In this slide, you can see it's written with a picture of Maqbool Bhatt. मैं कश्मीर में जबर, जुल्म, फरसूदगी, दौलत पसंदी और इस्तेसाली कुव्वतों के खिलाफ बगावत का मुर्तकिब हुआ हूँ. Bhatt's Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front actually spearheaded political struggle of Kashmir against Indian occupation. So owing to his political activities, he was imprisoned under the Enemy Act. And it is very ironic to note that while he was still in prison, the assassination of an Indian diplomat in UK became the reason of his hanging. His hanging was a murder by the state, as there was no legal procedure followed, and he was hanged just 5 days after the killing of that Indian diplomat. It was mainly done to mitigate the anger of general public, and his dead body was also not returned to the family. Because of his political struggle and the way he was hanged, he became invincible. In the picture, you can see Kashmiris holding a banner about Maqbool Bhatt, and they're also being held by Indian security forces. The impact of his struggle on local Kashmiris has been immense. He became Babai Qaum for Kashmiris. He still lives in their hearts. And his death anniversary is observed on every 11th of February. Another martyr who greatly affected the people of Kashmir was Afzal Guru. Let me also tell you that he never wanted to be a leader, but injustice incurred upon him by the Indian state made him larger than life. Afzal Guru, a Kashmiri from Baramulla and a graduate of Delhi University, initially joined JKLF. But later he left that organization and surrendered. In 2000, he was captured by Special Security Force for no reason and was brutally tortured. Someone advised him that in order to avoid inhuman treatment, he needs to cooperate with security forces, and he started cooperating with them. He came to New Delhi and started teaching the kids of security personnel. Later, he came into contact with DSP Dravinder Singh, who once brutally tortured him in Kashmir. Afzal Guru did some trivial task given to him by DSP Dravinder Singh. At that time, he did not know that he'll be used as a pawn in a great game. One day, he was about to bring his family to Delhi. He was again caught by the police for his alleged involvement in the parliament attacks of 2001. There is some link of Dravinder Singh with parliament attacks of 2001, as you can see in the screen grab also. Dravinder Singh actually used Afzal Guru by connecting him with the parliament attacks. Because if you see at one fundamental question raised by Arundhati Roy, a very famous human rights activist and author, she says that why for months before the attack on parliament, both the government and police had been saying that parliament could be attacked. On December 12, 2001, at an informal meeting, the Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee warned of an imminent attack on parliament. On December 13th, parliament was attacked. Given that there was improved security drill, how did a car packed with explosive enter the parliament complex? So it implies, Arshi has also mentioned about it, that Indian government was involved in planning an attack on parliament for implicating Pakistan as a terror sponsoring state. And by linking a Kashmiri with parliament attack, India tried to prove that Kashmiris also support alleged terrorist activities of Pakistan. But the consequence of this scheme of India turned out to be very different. Rather than being called as a terrorist, Afzal Guru became a hero, as you can also see on the slide. Kashmiris still gather to remember Afzal Guru, and he becomes a security threat for Indian government. Here is another screen grab from 2021. In this picture, you can see the students of Jawaharlal Nehru University. They are also protesting, and they have gathered to remember Afzal Guru. And on the right-hand side, there is a boy. He is holding a banner, "Return mortal remains of Shaheed Afzal Guru." He is Umar Khalid. Umar Khalid, a Kashmiri PhD student of Jawaharlal Nehru University, was accused of sedition as he raised pro-Afzal Guru slogans. Now dead, Afzal Guru has also become a threat for India. It is again injustice and inhuman treatment of Indian government meted out to Afzal Guru, which made him a hero and a leader to be followed. Another martyr who hugely impacted the local Kashmiri was Burhan Wani. Wani belonged to a highly educated upper-class Kashmiri family. It is believed he was driven to militancy at the age of 15. After his brother and he were brutally beaten by the Indian forces. His father told in an interview that he initially wanted to join Indian army, but brutal beatings made him join Hizbul Mujahideen, and he took up arms against the Indian state. Vani was very active on social media, and unlike militants in the past, he did not hide his identity behind the mask. By July 8, 2016, when Vani was martyred, Vani had brought the militancy to every home and every phone in the valley. In this slide, you can see different pictures of Vani he used to post on social media. He spoke with courage what was in the hearts of many Kashmiris. Let me also tell you that he never killed anyone. His movement was only confined to social media. He was instrumental in creating awareness in Kashmir about oppressive regime of India. Over here, you can see a huge funeral of Burhan Wani. Burhan Wani was martyred in a police encounter. And every month of July since then has become the month of Wani. Dead Wani has become phenomenal, and more young people are joining the armed groups like Wani. In this table, you can see that after the killing of Wani, in 2017, 126 people joined the armed struggle. And in 2018, the number grew to 218. There was a new valor to the movement for Kashmir, freedom movement of Kashmir. In this news item, you can see that Kashmiri teenagers are dying to protect the freedom fighters. In this slide, you can see that strikes are observed to remember the militant commander. Over here, you can see the spontaneous strikes in the valley because of Burhan's Wani death. Over here, you can see his last picture. It also became viral. In the end, I would just say that over the years, the leaders who have emerged in Kashmir, either consequential or intentional, all were filled with passion, courage, and determination. But the question arises that why the freedom movement of Kashmir has still not become decisive. In my reckoning, there are 6 factors that have inversely affected the freedom struggle of Kashmir. In the past, to relegate the demand of having a plebiscite in 1975 by Sheikh Abdullah was the biggest mistake. Second, still there is no unifying force between the regions of Jammu, Ladakh, and Kashmir, which can bring people together. In 1947 also, Ghulam was true to the cause of right of self-determination, but he was unable to communicate with people in Kashmir in Kashmiri language. So there was a gap, and that is why Sheikh Abdullah rose to prominence, and he was not true to the cause of Kashmir. Third, the conformist parties like National Conference and People's Democratic Party have greatly affected the cause of right of self-determination for their own interests. Fourth, there is no unity of purpose in political and armed factions of Kashmir. Some call for independence, some call for merger with Pakistan, and some call for peaceful coexistence with India. There needs to be clarity within Kashmir what they really want. Fifth is the caste factor. I am not very sure about it because it's an understudied subject. But if there are caste differences in Kashmir, it may also impede their unity. And sixth, India is a rogue state. It is unjust and can use any mean to curb Kashmiri resistance. Therefore, in order to liberate Kashmir, first there should be unity and clarity within Kashmir, and second, they won't be able to do it alone. Pakistan needs to put its own house in order so that it can speak more effectively for Kashmiris. If there will be human rights violations within Pakistan, how would we be able to do that? So this is the end from me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maryam. And you discussed a very sensitive topic and highlighted sacrifices of some prominent Muslim Kashmiri leaders who at a very young age joined the cause of freedom struggle. due to persistent injustice. I now open the floor for a question and answer round, and I request everyone to participate in it.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, दिस इज जोएब हसन और मेरा जो सवाल है डॉक्टर अर्शी सलीम साहिबा से. मैडम, माय क्वेश्चन इज that whether the freedom of Kashmir is a matter of human rights and the right of self-determination, or it is a matter of Pakistan national security. And the second question is, we have been engaged in Kashmir conflict for more than 76 years now. We took the matter to the United Nations. We had several talks about this issue. Are we fighting the war of Kashmir, or we are fighting the war for Kashmiris? Because both of the narratives are different and opposite to each other. Second question. Okay. My second question is, are we fighting the war of Kashmir, or we are fighting the war for Kashmiris? Because both the narratives are different and opposite to each other. Thank you.
Okay, हाँ, फिर side पे आ गए. The first part of your question was whether it is what made you think that these are really two different things. Any country having even even if it does not fall in the one religion or the same religion and other factors, having a territorial dispute, it makes it concerned about its security. So having India on our east and having this territorial dispute, even if we are looking at it, or any leader for that matter looking at it, we will have security concerns for that. But that does not mean that the core argument about the unfinished agenda of the partition plan, that the Kashmiri people should have been given the right to decide where they would actually like to go, the right of self-determination, and later on United Nations resolution and all that. We have a very clear position. I mean, I don't think that there is this confusion really emphasizing on one aspect and leaving the other. There may have been different, I would not use the word priorities, but there are different ways of doing the politics. So there are governments or regimes here who may have prioritized or highlighted one aspect and leaving the other. But I think in our national, it is part of our national narrative also, that we have this unfinished agenda, we have this problem with India, and that is also a major security concern for us. So once this issue is resolved, obviously we'll have a better environment, or maybe some kind of one can hope a normal relation with the neighboring country as well. So yeah, so that's about the first part of your question. The second part was whether it is
Over Kashmir or for Kashmir.
so if that is why I'm saying that one has to be very, very clear and realistic also. There are two paradigms in international relations. One is peace paradigm, one is realist paradigm. When it comes to realist paradigm, obviously it's about the states and the territories and power you have. But when it comes to peace paradigm, and actually it has become now more, the focus of international relations, that it has to be more inclusive. So when it comes to the peace paradigm, it's about the people also. You can't really have a piece of land without actually thinking about the people. And when we say the people, it's people on both sides of the border. So it's not just a matter of a piece of land. What is happening with the people of Indian occupied Kashmir is also, it is important. In fact, it is the issue. There may have been policy blunders also, and we need to focus on that. We need to reevaluate our policies also, where we are focusing what we really want to do. I think right now it's the issue of the human rights, safeguarding the human rights of the Kashmiri people there, because everything is linked with that. Once the rights are safeguarded, the entire thing will be actually, it will come to a place. Right?
Thank you, Arshi. Can I request everyone to make just one question, ask one question, and make your comments also short. Thank you.
I would like to discuss a very critical issue here. That is when now, especially after the events of August 19, when we see that there is a new era going on, there is new Cold War emerging in the world. And in that war, basically, India is now the blue-eyed baby of the West. It is emerging as the blue-eyed baby of the West. We saw that last week they landed on the South Pole of Moon, and then yesterday they held the G20 summit where they absolutely dominated everything, achieved their goals 10 times over maybe. So that combined with the ever deteriorating condition of Pakistan currently in terms of economy, the political stability, and as a consequence of that, our diplomacy and diplomatic stance on various matters, there is a general sense of severe disappointment among the youth, especially regarding to the matter of Kashmir. I remember that when I started my degree back in 2019, we used to take the Kashmir issue with very enthusiasm and things like that. But at the end of my degree, after 4 years, I can see in the people like me of my age, they don't even like to discuss the Kashmir. They say, oh, let's not discuss it. We have our own problem. My question is that, is there any way forward? Is there any beacon of hope? Will we be able to get out of that? And or have we lost our narrative or our stance on Kashmir totally? Is there any solution? And if there is any, what could it be? Thank you so much.
Okay, we need to, this is what I'm repeating myself. We need to really see the entire issue, or for that matter, any issue dispassionately. Emotional politics is not going to get us anywhere. We have experienced that. Nations, they do change their strategies without compromising on what their objective is. So if this is the time, if we feel that, economically we are not doing well, there is this pressure, international community is really, favoring India and all that, does that mean that we just give up everything? This is the time to reevaluate. This is the time to focus on our economy. If we are strong enough to do something for ourselves, only then we would be able to do anything for anybody. You keep on just issuing a statement, this is not going to get us anywhere. It's a very simple, formula. Even in the families, you come up with big claims that if you're not actually doing anything, it's not going to get you anywhere. Right now, this is the time to reevaluate our policies, to change our strategy. It's not always, what we had been doing from 1947 or in 80s or 90s or even last 2 decades. We really need to strengthen our own economic situation, and then see how dispassionately, passion is of course required, but it should not really influence negatively your the way you plan or you decide, your decision-making ability. So I don't think that it's if you don't find that kind of passion among the young people, it's not because the issue has lost its relevance. It's because of the overall environment that we are even within our own government, within our own country. There are a number of issues. There is this overall environment where people, young people are especially finding themselves, in a state of confusion and all. So that has also reflected, this is being reflected on Kashmir issue as well. But I think we need to, right now, even if we feel that way, we need to really reevaluate and change the strategy.
I'm Fras Naqvi, and my question is from Mr. Ghulam Muhammad Safi. Well, from the discussion, we have analyzed that there are two perspectives when it comes to Kashmir, two sort of leaderships. One is the political one, and the other one is pan-Islamism. From the pan-Islamic perspective, even we have observed that Kashmir has not been able to garner that much of attention, like the issues of Palestine, the issues of Iraq, the issues of Syria, Bahrain, and Yemen even. So where does we lag behind in garnering the supports from the Islamic states, from the Muslim states, from the pan-Islamic perspective when it comes to the issue of Kashmir? Thank you.
First of all, I would like to mention that in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, you have the political leadership and the military leadership, Mujahideen leadership. Well, our political leadership is united under the banner of all parties, Hurriyet conference. So there is no confusion whatsoever, because there are people who want to join Pakistan. There are people who would like to be independent, neither India nor Pakistan. But all these factions have assembled in one all-parties Hurriyet conference. Then we have the Mujahideen leadership under United Jihad Council. They are the people who laid their lives for the freedom of Jammu and Kashmir. They have to have something that would inspire them for martyrdom. What would be that? Secularism? Socialism? Communism? It has to be Islam. So the inspiration for the Mujahideen will always remain Islam, though they are very categoric about what they want to achieve. Both United Jihad Council and the All Parties Hurriyet Conference, they have made it abundantly clear that ours is a political issue, and we want to resolve it politically. It's not merely a human rights issue, though the right of self-determination is the biggest human right a person can have or a nation can have. So we do get some support from Muslim world, especially from the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. But to the extent we want that support to be, so we have not been able to muster that support to that extent. And this is what Pakistan will have to take care of, because the Kashmiri leadership, they can meet the OIC people only when we have a Pakistani passport to reach there, to Jeddah or to any Islamic conference. So I also want to make it clear that India played its cards very well. You remember the day when Barack Obama visited India. On that very day, 36 Sikhs were killed in Jammu and Kashmir, Chatti Singhpura. You have heard about the parliament attack. Who was behind that attack? So India, in a calculated way, tried to portray the entire struggle for self-determination as terrorism. Though the UN Charter is also very clear that those who have been deprived of their right of self-determination, they have every right to defend their right, even through arms. This is what the UN Charter also talks about. So credit must be given to India, who very cleverly played its cards, and we who are striving for our right to self-determination, we, as Dr. Arshi very rightly said, we need to change strategy, but not our stance. Unfortunately, we have been advised by our allies a number of times that India is a big country. You cannot fight against India. So better to change your stance rather than changing the strategy. So, but I, as a Kashmiri and as a freedom fighter and a Hurriyet activist, I would like to assure you that the people of Jammu and Kashmir, they know how India feels, how India wants the Kashmiris to do away with their struggle, to leave it now. But the martyrs who have laid their lives at the altar of freedom in Jammu and Kashmir, they inspire us, and we are determined to take the ongoing movement to its logical conclusion. It may take time, but India will have to surrender before the will of the Kashmiri people, inshallah.
My name is Hamna, and I am an undergraduate student of public policy at the National Defense University. So my question is generally to the whole panel. So when we talk about Kashmir, or when Kashmir is talked about even in the international forum, mostly the issue comes at the cost of both the countries that we're discussing, India and Pakistan. So if we talk about this movement that has been going on currently inside of Kashmir, and the fact that over 75 years we've been struggling for the freedom of Kashmir, do we think that at this point the people of Kashmir actually even want to join Pakistan, or are they at a point where they're just so fed up of both the countries using Kashmir as a point of contention that they maybe just want sort of autonomy and greater independence from both of these countries?
People of Jammu and Kashmir are concerned. They have made it quite clear that though they are striving for their right to self-determination, but the ultimate goal they have in front of their eyes, that's accession to Pakistan, because on 19th of July, 1947, that is even before the freedom of Pakistan or the creation of Pakistan. The leadership in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, they have decided at that time that we will accede to Pakistan. Then the people of Jammu and Kashmir also know that there is an article in the Constitution of Pakistan, Article 257, which says, and I quote, when the people of the state of Jammu and Kashmir decide to accede to Pakistan, the relationship between Pakistan and that state shall be determined in accordance with the wishes of the people of that state. Even after accession, Pakistan says that it will be decided whatever relationship the Kashmiris would like to have with Pakistan, it would be the prerogative of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So at present, we do want that it should not be bilateral talks between India and Pakistan. Sayyid Ali Gilani said, either implement the UN resolutions or go for a tripartite talk between India, Pakistan, and the basic party of the Kashmir issue, that is the Kashmiris. Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I audible? Assalamu alaikum. My name is Arham and I am a student of public policy from the National Defense University. My question is basically addressed to the whole panel. Seeing Pakistan's strategy with concerns to Kashmir over the past 76, 75 years, we've seen that we've taken different angles towards this particular issue. We have Kashmir as a nuclear flashpoint. We have Kashmir as a center of international human rights violation. We've had Kashmir being discussed in terms of territorial legalities, so on and so forth, on different platforms, be it on international institutions or in the bilateral talks and other talks that we've had with India so far in the past. So when we talk about the Pakistani foreign policy, we've seen that we're constantly determined to give the liberation to the Kashmiri people. What are the possible things that are lagging on part of our country? Because we've addressed that India has played its card very right. But what was wrong in our strategy and how could we eliminate that? That's something I'd be interested to know. Thank you.
One thing, Pakistan needs to be consistent. At times they say it's a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan, let us talk to India. At times they say it is an issue of right of self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and we will go to any extent. So let them be very clear about it. What the issue of Jammu and Kashmir is. A land dispute between India and Pakistan, or a dispute regarding the right of self-determination of a people of Kashmir. You would like to add something to it?
Say that when I said changing the strategy, I think, and we've been talking about a dispute between India and Pakistan. I mean, this is the time now to highlight what is happening in Kashmir as an issue of human rights violation. So the more we talk about and challenge, presenting it to the West, that you talk about protecting human rights anywhere in the world. This is something that your liberal peace and democratic system, actually emphasize on. So here is something which is happening in Kashmir, irrespective of the fact that what you think of Pakistan or what you think of India. Here is some, the real people who are suffering. And there is something that, so Pakistan needs to, instead of making it purely an issue, as he has also talked about it, between India and Pakistan, that we are having a dispute. I think we have been doing our internationalizing Kashmir issue. We do use this phrase very often as well. But I think the real internationalization is when on all concerned forums, the human rights abuses, the human rights situation, how the people are suffering and what are the consequences of that suffering if you just engage yourself in such activities which are leading to genocide, as claimed by some of the, in fact, genocide alert also issued an organization and amnesty, or there are various, I mean, if you look into that, if you go that way, you will find a lot of data. We are not right now talking about that. This is them who have to decide that if they can talk about preserving human rights all over the world, asking governments to take care of their people, minorities and all that, there is something which is going on. Just focus on that. And Pakistan can just focus on this very, point and take it from here instead of just engaging on the issue of how to really come up with new innovative ways on LOC and you have to stop, the cross-border fighting. I mean, these are the issues that we have to deal with. But here's this thing that can be presented to the West, to the champions of human rights, that you really have to focus on that.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Mavish from ISSI. My question is for Safi Sahab. Sir, I wish to know about Ghulam Nabi Azad and his recently formed party. Do you think he can pose a serious challenge to PDP and National Conference in future? And with Mirwais under house arrest for past so many years, do you think Ghulam Nabi Azad can play a leadership role and bring some relief for the Kashmiri people? Or is he just a puppet like Shah Faisal?
Has worked for Congress whole of his life. And he has been against what we have been striving for in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. He was the chief minister also. He was an Indian minister also. So his links with India will remain as those links were. He will not and he cannot contribute to the ongoing freedom struggle in any way. He will remain a puppet of the Indian government, that's for sure. And what happens to the politics there, to PDP and other parties? So he may play a role in that, but for the ongoing movement, no, he won't be in any way beneficial for us. And I also need to tell the Pakistani government, because once Pervez Musharraf was in New Delhi and there were some people, Kashmiris, Azad was also there, and some more people were also there. So he said, here is Mahbooba Mufti was also there. He said, here is the leadership of the Kashmiris. You need to know who really the leaders of Kashmir are. We discuss role of leadership, but we should first discuss the leadership. Can these people be the leaders of the ongoing movement? No. Thank you.
I would just like to add one thing, and it is an answer to your question that we are not consistent. Why we are not consistent? Because over here, there has never been democracy. Whatever is said by India, it is said by a popular leader. But in Pakistan, unfortunately, there is lack of consistency in political processes as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all the participants and the panelists for interesting discussion.
See, both these articles are the articles of the Indian Constitution. And the people of Jammu and Kashmir do not believe in the Constitution of India. But when it comes to the identity of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, this abrogation of especially 35A is very detrimental for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. ये आर्टिकल जो है, इसकी वजह से कोई बिरूनी आदमी, man or woman, could not buy land in Jammu and Kashmir. लेकिन अब वो जमीन भी खरीद सकते हैं, उनको वहाँ की स्टेट सब्जेक्ट सर्टिफिकेट भी मिल जाती है, डोमिसाइल भी उनको कश्मीर का ही मिलेगा, और कल जब रायशुमारी होगी उस वक्त वो एक वोटर की हैसियत से भी सामने आ जाएगा। जो हमारा वहाँ पे कैरेक्टर था, मेजॉरिटी कैरेक्टर ऑफ द मुस्लिम्स, वो अब मेजॉरिटी कैरेक्टर नहीं रहे। हम जम हो जाएंगे, हिंदू डोमिनेट करेंगे। और ये अजीब बात है कि the non-Muslims of Jammu, they are also feeling that this shouldn't have happened. तो इस लिहाज से अगरचे हमारा कंसर्न कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया नहीं है, लेकिन इस एक चीज की वजह से हमें बहुत सारी मुसीबतों का सामना करना पड़ेगा। यही वजह है कि हम वेहेमेंटली इसको अपोज करते हैं।
Thank you. I now invite President Iris, Ambassador Nadeem Riaz Saab for his concluding remarks. So over to you.
Thank you, Humera. It was, I'd like to thank the panel right at the very outset for their comments on a subject which is of great importance. But I think it's essential to understand what Kashmir is all about. And when I go and talk to people at various universities, I somehow feel that the youth of Pakistan are led a bit astray about the actual reality of Kashmir, because they somehow subscribe to the viewpoints which are being expressed by the Indians on the social media as well as in their writings. The first thing which you have to keep in mind about Kashmir is that the matter was taken by India to the United Nations. There are numerous Security Council resolutions about Kashmir, ranging from 11 to 18, dependent upon how you look at it, some from the UN Security Council and some from the General Assembly. As the matter is with the UN, it, in my opinion, cannot be settled bilaterally. Because a UN resolution, only the UN has the power to take away that resolution. So one should be very clear that the Kashmir issue is not an issue which is an issue of India or Pakistan. It is an international issue which has various resolutions, and it has to be settled in accordance with those resolutions. You also forget that there is a United Nations, it's called UNMOGIP. It's an observers group which is based in Pakistan. The Indians do not allow it on their territory for the last few years. So that group is there, which clearly indicates that Kashmir is a disputed territory. It's not an integral part of India. It is not a part of India where they can have their will implemented. The Constitution of India also spoke about its special status. Unfortunately, it was taken away with the abrogation of Article 370 and what you mentioned, sir, the 35A. Now, what does that do? It enables people who are not residents of Kashmir to buy property over there. So what will happen? With the new domicile law, if it remains unchecked, in a few years, the demographic pattern of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, or what we refer to as IIOJK, will change. So if a plebiscite is held in future, obviously the results of it would be aberrated. For saying that, I think that the leadership has played its role in the freedom struggle for Kashmir. The leaders are important to galvanize the people, and without a good leader, the people can go in various directions. Kashmir has had the ability to produce leaders on both sides, whether they were freedom fighters or whether they were people who believed to take the struggle to the Indians through constitutional method and means. But the two have worked in tandem. Speaker spoke about Pakpool Bhatt, Afzal Guru, Burhan Wani. Yes, these are the people who laid down their lives and have a huge following. But at the same time, please also look at the various strategies which the Indians have adopted. From within the Kashmiris, they have cultivated people who have basically propagated and professed the agenda of the Indian leadership. Political as well as the freedom struggle, in my humble opinion, will continue. It's just a matter of what the balance is going to be. When you are unfortunately confined to live in an open prison where your rights are violated with impunity and where your honor and life is not safe, I don't think any Kashmiri man or woman would agree to live under the Indian hegemony. So the struggle, its continuation, is a bygone conclusion. The only problem is that there is a lack of consistency of policies from our side. We many a times confuse the issue ourselves. I mean, in my opinion, there are only two options: plebiscite, India, or Pakistan. No UN document has spoken about a third option. And obviously, the basic thing is that it is for the Kashmiris to decide. That, I think, is the key. Now, when you look at the goals of a country, whether it is Pakistan, whether it is India, the goal doesn't change. But the strategies to achieve that particular aim or goal can be varied. So I think after August 2019, the strategy of dealing with Kashmir, it needs an overhaul. I don't think by putting banners on Constitution Avenue or by just talking about it at various forums, things will change. You have to take the struggle to where it will have an impact. the Kashmiris, their own leadership, assisted by the Pakistanis, will have to internationalize the issue. Kashmir is both a territorial as well as a human rights problem area. The trick is that how well does Pakistan and how well does the Kashmiri leadership play their cards so that it has an impact on the powers that be. But to do that, the first thing is we have to put our own house in order. The Kashmir committee cannot just be a rubber stamp. It has to basically work within the parameters of what the Kashmir dispute has become today. IRS worked with the Kashmir committee in the past, and we gave them a complete roadmap of how to take this issue internationally. Not only internationally, but also domestically. Because if the very youth of Pakistan, they don't know about the correct history of Kashmir, in a few years' time, the outlook will be completely different. And anyway, for any impact in the West, it's the people on whom the atrocities have been committed. They have to go and appear before the various parliaments, use the option of lawfare to take the matters where it will affect the people who are going to take decisions to ensure that a plebiscite is held. The more it is delayed with the new domicile laws, with the taking away of the special status, I think our Kashmiri brothers and sisters are going to be in difficulty. So I think the time has come to actively work for the Kashmir cause and work for the Kashmir issues. And when you are in trouble, when you have to struggle for your basic existence, I don't think there will be a shortage of leadership. Leaders emerge from difficult situations. So people who are unknown today and maybe working under the surface will be leaders of Kashmir tomorrow, and they will lead the Kashmir cause. So we wish our Kashmiri brothers and sisters all success, and we will always stand by them and we will always support them. But support is just not banners. It is a strategy, and you have to devise your strategy in accordance with the changing circumstances. Once again, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for the informed audience and for the esteemed speakers who found time to be here with us. Let's give them all a hand. Thank you.